Hello, South Florida. Welcome to another live edition of the Real Estate Show, South Florida's number one program about real estate and America's longest running daily radio show, all about the topic of, well, you guessed it again, it's real estate. My name is Eric Willner, and I am your host, and we are here live Monday through Friday. That's 5 days a week, 5 p.m. Eastern Time, coming at you on 5 different channels, 5 different options on how to watch the real estate show. You can listen to us on the AM station, on the FM stations in plural. You can listen to us on the radio show apps, also plural. All you have to do is download one of the free apps that you can from your smart device store, whether it be the App Store, the Google Store, or whatever else. And just look for TuneIn Radio, the iHeartRadio app, or the radio.com app, even WWNN. And that's what you search for, WWNN. They have their own app, or you can search for it on the other apps, Money Talk Radio. Join us there live at 5 days a week, and you'll catch us there. Those are 4 of the different ways. And the 5th way is you can also watch us on our Facebook Live page. Join us live, 5 o'clock, 5 days a week for your daily dose of real estate. This week, we have been talking about survival, right? As many people have been kind of steadily watching the status of the stimulus packages and the different acts. And I'll tell you that the stronger that the economy keeps getting, and it appears to be, the less likely that you're going to see more stimulus or more benefits that come out this way. Nevertheless, there still is that one loose piece of business hanging out there known as the moratorium. It's really a couple moratoriums. There's the moratorium which stops the banks from foreclosing, and you've got the moratorium which stops landlords from being able to evict. Both of those are set to expire sometime soon. Right now, I think the latest extension is until June 30th. Depending on which agency. So there's a lot of confusion, and you're going to see these things open up. You can bet that the banks are anxious to get going and get back to business. I can tell you for sure that the landlords are anxious to get back to business. And there's going to be what I guess some people call a little bit of a market correction, cleansing, if you will. And so there's a number of things that we're, surviving the pandemic, surviving the economic downturn, surviving the high unemployment rate. But I just heard some statistics a little bit earlier today talking about the number of layoffs have slowed down, the number of rehirings have ramped up. In fact, the problem today is not so much unemployment, because the issue right now is not enough employees out there to fill all of the jobs, which is why, for example, Montana has cut off and suspended unemployment benefits from the federal government and for any further stimulus. Why? Because they have a shortage of employees, and they're not going to sit there and finance people to stay home and not go to work when there's businesses that need the employee power. And I can surely bet that you're going to see that trend grow in more and more states. And like I said, the stronger the economy is, the more the demand for labor is, the longer that the interest rates stay low, that the housing market stays strong, that the inventory remains low, the demand continues to be high. All of those are very, very positive business signs, which is one more reason why you can imagine, even when they do lift the eviction moratorium and the foreclosure moratorium, you're going to see a rotation. I think you will. You're going to see a spike in distressed properties, but you're also going to see a flood, of folks coming out looking for those deals. So I think that the market, barring something else, I think you're going to see the market absorb that additional inventory pretty quickly. So that's something that you should definitely be on the lookout for. Here, as we've been talking about the survivalist sort of theme, every week we start out on our Mondays on a Mission edition of the Real Estate Show. We talk about the theme. This week was about surviving in real estate. We talked about surviving the pandemic. We talked about the concept, and we laid out the agenda for the rest of the week. Tuesday, as always, are tools, tips, and techniques. That's where we take the concept from Monday and put it into practice, actionable advice that you get here on the Real Estate Show on Tuesdays. Wednesdays, we talked about the marketplace and some really cool articles that are a mosquito in this studio. We talked about the different articles in the marketplace that are talking about the exact subject that we were talking about here on the Real Estate Show. And I thought that Wednesday was particularly interesting because it is such a sort of off the beaten path, no pun intended. We came back from our real estate investors trip out to Idaho. And in Idaho, the topic of our be a place to run to or escape to in the event of the worst thing, Armageddon, World War III, another major pandemic that is a lot worse in what we saw, rioting, war, whatever it may be. There is a I'm going to tell you this to some of your surprise that there is a large group of people who call themselves the survivalists, and they have a plan A and a plan B in the event of a disaster. Just imagine, this is kind of stuff here in Florida. We do this on a regular basis because every year, and we're coming up to the beginning of hurricane season. And so a prudent family will have not only, some backup supplies. That's what the survivalists do. They have supplies that supplies that are designed that in the event that all the supermarkets shut down, kind of like what we did in the beginning of the pandemic, where there was limited hours, limited access. If it's very regulated. What would happen? In fact, I was talking to another one of my investor friends from Brazil, where they, during the pandemic, to stop the outside public traffic and shut down more, they close supermarkets every Sunday. Well, now because of the numbers having increased down there in Brazil, they now close it Saturday and Sunday. Well, if they can close it Saturday and Sunday, and you think about the people, even when you work at home and you have to stay at home, you can't go out to the supermarket whenever you want. And you can't go to the supermarket on Saturdays and Sundays. It makes it very difficult. And if they can close it Saturday and Sunday, they could easily close it other days or all of the days of the week for the right extenuating circumstances. So you better have some supplies. And so the survivalists, they have this plan. They have something called the bug out bag, which is if you had to suddenly leave your residence and you had 5 minutes notice, what would you take? What would you take? Your most important documents, cash, credit cards, or whatever, your most important financial identification, and certain other things. Maybe it's arms and whatever you're going to take. But you got to have that, and the survivalists know exactly what I'm talking about. But many of you should realize that. So anyway, in yesterday's midweek report, not only did we talk about things like that, but we also talked about survivalist homes that are built with bunkers in them. Everything from special the ability to shut down and make a hard shell around the house so you can't be invaded by all the other zombies out there, the protesters that want to, the looters, etc. Some of them with escape tunnels in other areas, or just underground bunkers where they can kind of hide out. Now, in Florida, there are places that need to be, hurricane and flood proof. This is a concept that exists maybe on the fringe to some people, but a lot more common. And usually this is done by more affluent people who also make great investors. And there are parts of the country that are known as survivalist destinations, Utah, Idaho being just a couple. So today what I wanted to talk about is the ATM edition of the Real Estate Show, which is every week we talk about the money. And so one of the things that as a prudent investor, you want to have a bug out bag of creative financing techniques. So I want to talk a little bit about that. When it comes to surviving in a real estate market, think about this. In 2008, when they had a literal banking mortgage meltdown, we went from having mortgages so freely available to everybody in 2006. There was the running jokes. In fact, there was a lot of jokes at the time. At the time, they were talking about that if you could fog a mirror, you could get a loan. If you could sign your name, you could get a loan. That we had no income verification loans, we had no asset verification loans, and the other inside joke is that we were probably within days of no credit verification loans either. You just tell them what your assets are, you tell them what your income is, and you tell them what your credit is, and they write it down and say, okay, we're not going to verify that. This is what you qualify for. And we went from that to 18 months later to no loans available for anybody. All the banks were on lockdown. They were making no new loans. Real estate was falling at a, like a lead brick. And so there was no ability to do appraisals. And so think about that. My conversation about the supermarkets, they could shut it down 100%. They shut down the banking once before 100%. So what happens if that day comes where they shut down conventional financing for whatever reason? Well, I'm going to answer that question when we come back from our break. We're going to take a quick time for our sponsors to give you a quick little message. Remember to appreciate our sponsors here. They're the ones that make the Real Estate Show possible. And then when we come back, we're going to talk about 10 possible creative financing techniques for survival in real estate in the event of a full or partial bank cutoff or shutdown. You're listening to the Real Estate Show. My name is Eric Willner. Don't worry, I don't think that's happening anytime very soon. But just in case, you better come back right after these words. Adam, how are you? Simone from Boca Raton, how are you? Felipe from California, ¿cómo estás, mi amigo? Erica, love of my life, how are you? Minush Martins, tudo bem? So we got people from everywhere, from all walks of life. Cindy from California, or are you in Texas? We got all of our folks up there. Maleva is there as well. I got to look over my computer to see who else is on there. Maleva's down with the zombies. Well, she'll fix them up. They won't look so bad once Maleva gets a hold of them, and that's cool. And were your ears ringing today, Maleva? Because Don and I were talking about you, and I know that I've got a gentleman who also wants to talk to you about your nonprofit expertise. So anyway, just having a little bit of fun today with the topic, with the show. All of that is right here for those of you watching there. Here's my Survivalist mug, rather large mug, if you will. In fact, it looks even larger when I bring it up here. But it's made to look like one of those metallic mugs that you throw into your bag. My Survivalist flask, when that can be very important. And yesterday I had my Survivalist bracelet, the rope with the compass, the whistle, the saw, the knife, the flint. In fact, I was explaining the use of it today to my son, Jordan. And when I said the flint, he goes, "You mean steel and flint?" And he goes, "That's to make fire, isn't it?" So he says, "I learned how to do that in Minecraft." And welcome back. For those of you just joining us, we are the Real Estate Show, South Florida's #1 program about real estate, America's longest running daily radio show, all about the topic of real estate. And we're here talking about survivalism and that whole concept. It's a movement. It's a community that has been around for a while. Of course, they sort of flare up into a higher level of activity and awareness when you have things like the Capitol riot and the things that look like things are going the wrong way. And of course, when there's a pandemic, when there's a national meltdown of the economies, or the increased threat of war, nuclear attacks, et cetera, et cetera. So we wanted to show how there is a whole survivalist view in real estate. And in light of everything that's going on, it makes a lot of sense. And it also makes a lot of sense that on our Thursday edition of the Real Estate Show, when we always talk about financing, that having a survivalist look at real estate. So what happens if all of a sudden, if the market freezes up in terms of financing, like it did in 2008, so it's not something unheard of, like it did during the Great Recession, during the Great Depression, and through other times, particularly, World War and things like that. So what I recommend is today's investors should be equipped with not one, but several financing options. And you want to have it sort of like a couple of different arrows in your quiver. And it makes a lot of sense also to have a couple of different options before approaching a deal. So it may seem simple and straightforward just to, pick up the phone or get on your computer and look for your local lender du jour. What are they offering the best rates, et cetera, et cetera. And many of you may haven't found out that those best rates are only for the best borrowers, people with verifiable income, people with verifiable good credit scores, and people with verifiable good down payments. Now, some of these alternative programs are starting to slowly creep back in, so they do exist. There are that don't use pay stubs, but only use tax returns. There is a couple of programs out there that don't use tax returns, but do use bank statements. And those are different ways of showing income, of course, with a little bit more flexibility of how to disclose what your expenses are, et cetera, et cetera. But there are other ways where you don't have to show any of that. And I'll often share here on the Real Estate Show, it doesn't matter whether you have or don't have a down payment. Talk to me, because we have programs for people with little to no down payment. If you have no credit or bad credit, talk to me, because we have people that work with people with bad or insufficient or non-existent credit even. Not only that, but we can show you how to fix and or create credit where there didn't exist. In fact, I can create 2 years of credit literally in a week. And assuming that you're doing something out there. And my sort of prequel is, if you can show me that you've been paying rent or paying for housing any which way for the last 12 months, I can get you in to own your own house. So what are some of the creative financing techniques? First of all, if you do have a relationship with a lender, you might refinance property A to get money for property B. So that becomes a cash purchase. And of course, cash is the most, I'll call it, uncreative way of financing. In fact, sometimes I like working with people who don't have a lot of cash, because it brings the creative mind, problem solving techniques to the front. When you have a lot of money, you tend not to be very creative, and you're foregoing the ability to use leverage, which is one of the 5 stars that I talk about why real estate is the ideal investment. And leverage is one. And if you miss out on using the leverage, you miss out also on increasing your rate of return and a couple of other things that today's not the show for that. So cash, of course, is one form of creative financing. Cashing out or refinancing another property for an existing property is another creative source of financing in the event. Now, if there is that sort of total shutdown on the banking side, then even the refinance might not be available. Very related to the refinance are home equity lines of credit, or what many people will refer to also as a second mortgage. And there's sort of a little bit of a different nuance. A line of credit means that I can use it, pay it back, and use it again. A second mortgage means that it's a second lien position, or another mortgage behind the mortgage that I have, that I borrow the money, pay it back, and that's it. It's sort of like a fixed mortgage or an installment loan on my house behind so home equity lines of credit, second mortgages. But no, let's just make believe that conventional financing or institutional financing is completely off the board. Well, now let's talk about personal loans. Who you know. This is a great example of your net worth will be your net worth. If you have a good relationships, good reputation in the community and in your business dealings, then a personal loan from somebody is likely to happen. And so that's important. And then, of course, there's nothing like having wealthy relatives or wealthy friends around you that you might be able to tap in. But again, now the credit is not the credit bureau. It's not Equifax, TransUnion, or Experian. We're talking now about, goodwill and the good faith that you've built up out there in the community. Another one that's sort of similar to a personal loan, but from a stranger, is seller financing. Now, back in the late 70s, when there was a very high case of inflation, hint, 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 because of overborrowing and overstimulus back during the 70s recession, which was a very deep recession, hint, hint, hint. Then what happened is that there was a lot of seller financing, that in order to get top dollar for your house, owners had to be willing to take some down payment, but then accept payments over some period of time. And there's different ways that we can get into about structuring. You might do a seller finance loan for the first 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, well, whatever number of years, sometimes 7, sometimes 10 years, and then require a balloon payment or a refinance at that point. And that's, a lot of real estate still in this market. And to this day, seller financing happens every single day. And it's a tool that you should learn how to use. If you need help, of course, I'm going to give out the phone number for you to reach us. If you're interested in learning more about this, you can text us the word investor to 561-861-2366. That's 561-861-2366. Remember, you can always contact us on our website at automaticlandlord.com. That's automaticlandlord.com. Now, another little tool to have in your creative financing toolkit, your real estate financial bug out bag, if you will, is our lease options. Understanding that lease options are a very solid, well-known, more common than you think technique of buying real estate without involving the banks or institutions. So you can lease a property, establish good payment history, and then when financing comes along, be it when the institutions come back into the marketplace, and even when they leave, they come back, or it's a matter of getting a different personal loan like we talked about, a different home equity loan. You might even renegotiate the financing from the seller of the property. But lease options are a very interesting way of getting into a property. And it's also arguably a very good way to sell a property, because you still maintain ownership of the title and the tax benefits while you're selling the property, and potentially for a higher amount, because you're giving this facility to somebody that otherwise couldn't get the money the conventional way. So lease options are a very powerful and very good way of alternate financing. Another little known, common, happens all the time, but people are surprised to find out that self-directed IRAs are great sources of mortgages. In fact, if you didn't even know that, and you've got a big IRA and you say, wow, I could get a much higher rate of return secured by land and real estate, I would love to learn how I could get 5, 6, 7, 8, 9% of secured rate of return. Let us know about that, because we can tell you how to do that. Hard money, which are lenders that lend based on the equity solely of the property, that's a great option. Private money from other sources, unrelated to the property, unrelated to you. There's private money out there that also in the event of a bug out situation are going to be the source of financing for real estate to continue on. And then finally, crowdfunding, the new kid on the block. And that's another way that you can raise money to buy real estate. Anyway, that's our ATM edition of the Real Estate Show. As you can hear, the music is coming in, which means Eric Willner is on his way out. But I'll be back again tomorrow for our 5th day of our 5 days a week real estate show. So until then, this is Eric Willner signing off. Drive safe, wash those hands, and make it a great day. Bye-bye. And that would be a wrap. I'll see you tomorrow. Thank you. Let's go ahead and wrap him up first. Then we'll wrap up our YouTube listeners. Take care, Brian, and all of you out there in YouTube land that watch us. Then I will say